Manatee Infuser here to say hi. You might say that this book was also my cup of tea. The book in question being For the Wolf by Hannah Whitten, which I find to be the perfect book for the changing of the seasons, winter into spring, even though it has a lot of autumnal imagery, honestly, but we'll get to that. So, as you can see by this beautiful matte finish paperback cover, it's got like a Little Red Riding Hood-esque figure going on there in the middle of these white sentinel trees in the background, kind of a silhouette. I really like the art style. As a tangent, I don't think this book was ever released in hardcover, at least according to the Barnes & Noble search system. I couldn't find it, so that's okay because the paperback is really nice. Anyway, so what is this book about? So once upon a time, there's a kingdom called Valida, and there are two daughters, two princesses essentially. There's an older one and a younger one. One is for the throne, the older one, and one is for the wolf, the younger one. Who's the wolf? Is it an actual wolf like in Little Red Riding Hood? Well, no. It's more of a Beauty and the Beast situation, honestly. In fact, this novel kind of riffs on a lot of fairy tale tropes, although in not really a tropey kind of way, and I was kind of exploring that. I was kind of trying to figure out the identity of this novel as I was getting into it. And really it's just its own thing. It just alludes to a lot of different classic tales. But when I first picked this up, I certainly thought it was a Little Red Riding Hood story. But anyway, so there's this kingdom called Valida. It shares a border with this kind of forbidden forest situation known as the Wilderwood. And in the Wilderwood there is the wolf, or the beast, I guess. But it's an entity known as the wolf who lives there. And the kingdom essentially has a tradition that whenever daughters are born, which they always are somehow, it's just what happens in this kingdom is an older daughter is born and a younger daughter is born to every successive king or queen. The older daughter is the heir to the throne, which is pretty, conventional. And then the younger daughter is the one who is to be sent out into the Wilderwood to be a sacrifice, essentially, for the beast, or for the wolf. I guess I'll call him the beast. A wolf is a beast, basically. But anyway, so, yeah. So our two main protagonists are, Red, who is this girl, the one who's for the wolf. The younger one is pretty much the primary protagonist, but her older sister, Neve, is sort of like a deuteragonist who stays back behind as Red ventures out into the Wilderwood when she comes of age. So that's kind of the premise. How the novel starts out is that Red is short for Redaris, and Neve is short for Nevera. This is the first time I've pronounced like any of these names for anyone, because I didn't listen to this on audiobook or anything. So, could be butchering them. But the novel opens with like Red's coming of age ceremony at the palace. We're introduced to most of the primary characters. We've got Red's like pseudo love interest, who she's kind of like her like childhood friend who's like in love with her. His name is Eric, and she's not really like that into him, but she kind of plays into it a little bit. And Drama Bomb, Eric, is also the one who's, kind of supposed to end up marrying Neve because to like unite their two kingdoms once she becomes queen. So that's kind of like a weird love triangle, like complicated situation thing. But Neve is also in love with this other guy whose name is Rafe, or Rafe. Rafe. I think it's like, yeah, Rafe. And he comes from another kingdom somewhere else, but he's just kind of visiting, and they're not really supposed to be together because she's already, like, betrothed to Eric. I should note that all the characters in this novel are actually very memorable, and the names help that, because they're unique names. I'm trying to get used to letting them roll off the tongue. But anyway, so they're all there for Red's ceremony. All the drama, relationship drama is on the surface. Everybody's there, passions are running high. And so the time comes, and Neve and Red's mom, or the queen, she has to basically just like, they have to drop Red off at the forest to send her in there, and so she can go in there and be a sacrifice to the wolf. And they don't really know what's going to happen once she goes into the Wilderwood. and goes and finds the wolf, and what he's gonna do, what's gonna go down. Is she gonna die? Essentially, they think they're sacrificing her to a great beast, who's going to be sated for their end of the agreement. Why did they send the second daughter to the forest to the wolf, you may ask? I mean, basically because there's a promise, there's like this prophecy situation that an age of prosperity will come back where they regain the lost kings of their kingdom. I believe there's 5 of them. It's either like 5 or 7. I think it's 5 of them. But the 5 lost great kings who were sacrificed, who were lost to the Shadowlands that are also in the Wilderwood. And essentially, since then, this like religion has uprisen, thinking that it's basically a religion where they believe that hope and prosperity and salvation will come to the kingdom if they keep sacrificing second daughters to the Wilderwood in order to get back the lost kings who have become essentially deities by this point in their mind. And that's why they send Red off. And Red is like the 5th, I believe it's like rule of 5 here. She's the 5th second daughter, the 5th second daughter. Yeah, I've got that right. So she's the 5th in this line of tradition. Essentially, every other time they've sacrificed a second daughter to the Wilderwood and the wolf, it's been a failure. The kings didn't come back from the Shadowlands, and nobody heard from them again. The end. And so what's going to make Red any different? Well, so most of the story is told from Red's point of view, or like we're looking over her shoulder. She is the protagonist after all. And when her and Neve were younger, flashback several years ago in lore in the story, they tried to escape this fate by going into the Wilderwood and taking matters into their own hands. How? Well, I don't know. They try to like, I don't know. They throw rocks at the Wilderwood. They're like teenagers and they're like angsty. I don't know. But they end up getting attacked by the wood itself, essentially. And in the process, Red is infused with the power of the Wilderwood, like the magical natural power, or supernatural, natural, supernatural, whatever you want to call it. She's infused with the power before she even is, supposed to be sacrificed to the wood. And so she carries that with her for like the years leading up to even when she enters the Wilderwood. So with that kind of setup, it makes her out to be different from past second daughters. And with that, she goes into the wood, and insert joke Stephen Sondheim, reference here, I guess. But I'm trying to decide how much of this I want to spoil, because it's not really a spoiler, it's pretty much the premise. She gets there and essentially discovers that the wolf, who I keep calling the beast, isn't exactly what the people back home in Valida think he is. He's more of a person, more of a actual, human being, someone who's actually like sentient and relatable. And Red eventually starts to relate to him and care for him and get to know him, despite his kind of stoic manner. Yeah, and that's kind of where the whole Beauty and the Beast situation comes in. She ends up in this manor in the woods with him and his subjects. And she basically starts to find a home there more than she found in her kingdom, because her mother, leading up to knowing that she's going to have to sacrifice the second daughter, is kind of distant. And her relationship with her sister, while they're close, is kind of strained due to everything, especially like their relationship dramas and their prospective or their respective love interests. So all that causes a lot of tension between all the characters. And it makes for a really compelling drama, really compelling plot. It's kind of slow-moving at the beginning, because a lot of it is, like, Red gets there. Like, there's a good build-up, and then she ends up in the Wilderwood with the wolf, and they just kind of are tense toward each other and, standoffish, but she wants to learn more about her fate and what's really going on and what really happened to the 5 kings in the Shadowlands and what's really up with these sentinel trees and how they, demand blood sacrifices from the second daughter, and the very nature of the Wilderwood and the dynamic between that and the kingdom. And of course, as with any good story, she learns that everything is not what it seems. And the people who she thought were enemies aren't necessarily enemies. They might be, you know, the allies she never imagined she would have. And the people back home, not all of them are on her side, let's say. And it does flash back from her scenario, which is the main scenario, Red and the Wolf, to Neve back home. And Neve doesn't want to give up her sister, so she's coming up with solutions. She's leaving things to her own devices. As she's preparing to ascend to the throne herself, she's trying to figure out a solution to get Red back and to break this cycle. And it all kind of just like goes uphill from there, crescendos into a really, really epic climax in the end. I don't want to spoil anything, but it doesn't stay slow, it doesn't stay stagnant like it does for a good portion of the book. But yeah, and you might also notice that on the side it says The Wilderwood Book 1, which implies the existence of a whole series, or at least a book 2. I think, from the way things are being set up, like the first daughter and the second daughter situation, I think this is going to be a duology. They've already announced the second book in the series. I don't know if there's a plan to make more, but I think based on the shape of this story and how things are going, I imagine it's going to be 2 books. Because duologies are kind of more trendy now in fiction, which is cool. Not everything has to be a trilogy or a really long series or whatever. So, and you know, I think the basic arc of the story lends itself to this is the first part and the second part is the second act that's coming out next. So, as with most of the books I review them because I like them, and I do recommend it for fantasy. It's being described as like a folky fantasy. There's a lot of folklore, a lot of fairy tale lore in there, but really it's its own thing. It's not Beauty and the Beast, not quite. It's more like that than anything else. The Little Red Riding Hood comparison ends with the red cloak imagery and the name of the wolf being the wolf. That's kind of it. There's a few other fairy tales in there. I guess it would be a spoiler to mention which other ones are kind of just the imagery is alluded to in there, but there is a little more, especially toward the end. And yeah, I don't know. Really good stuff. I really found myself not being able to put it down. And I think you'll enjoy it. So, yeah, pick this up. This is Hannah Whitten's first novel. It's her debut novel, and it's dark fantasy. Brilliant dark fantasy debut, as said by Jodi Picoult right there. And I agree. I definitely agree. I look forward to seeing what's next. Happy equinox, and get outdoors. Don't wander into any forbidden forest, though. Or maybe do that. It kind of sounds like a fun idea, actually.